And welcome to the Retire Early, Retire Now podcast. I'm your host, Hunter Kelly, owner of Palm Valley Wealth Management, and this is the 35th episode. I release these episodes every Tuesday to help physicians and attorneys get best educated on how to retire early and retire now. And so today's episode, we're going to talk about 10 tips that doctors should follow as they graduate residency and then move on to an attending physician profession or job. And so obviously you've worked all your life for getting to this point where you've gone through undergrad, medical school, residency, sometimes fellowships, things of that nature, and to finally get to the point where you are an attending physician doing clinical work and getting the pay raise, to be honest, getting that extra cash on hand to start paying down student loans or achieve whatever other financial goals that you have is deeply rewarding, is what you've been working for. Obviously, the practice of medicine is rewarding itself, but also the time and effort that you put in. It is probably a joyous feeling. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, but it's a joyous feeling to say, hey, all that work I put in, now I'm going to reap the benefit of the studies and the hours, sleepless nights, things of that nature. And so the last thing you want to do is put yourself in a position where you start burning through that new income that you're earning and not really making progress toward whatever goals that you have. And so generally speaking, student loans is one of the biggest priorities for doctors because you have large debt because of post-grad school, medical school, potentially masters in there, whatever the case may be, and then having a period of time after graduating medical school where you're not making necessarily that much income relative to what your expertise is or will be. And so these 10 tips will help you kind of navigate that as you go from making $50, $60, $70,000 a year to multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And so the first things first on this list, and that is figuring out your budget, understanding where you want that new cash flow to go. And so the method that I like to employ for my clients is what I like to call pay yourself first, or some people call it reverse budgeting. And so this is setting up accounts or just a system to make sure that you're funding those goals first, and then anything left over can be your spending money, leftover money to do whatever you want to do. And so we need to figure out, one, what's our fixed expenses, what's our fixed variable expenses like electric bill, things of that nature, and then what are our goals with this extra cash flow that we have that we want to allocate, right? And so whether that be student loan debt, saving for a home, buying a new car, retiring early at some point, right? And so making sure that we're filling those buckets first before we go out and start doing lavish vacations or expending a ton of money eating out or hanging out with friends, things of that nature, if it's not on the top of our priority. Now, if travel is one of your priorities, then we'll make an account for that and things of that nature. And so what I always tell my clients, I'm not going to judge you on what you spend. The only thing I'm going to do is hold you accountable to the goals and priorities that we set through this reverse budgeting method and make sure that we're accountable to those. But if you want to go get a Starbucks, it's not going to make you poor, right? We just got to know that we're taking care of the things that are important first, right? And so the next thing to that reverse budgeting or pay yourself first method is creating those accounts to facilitate those goals, right? And so obviously opening up a checking and a high yield savings account so that you can earn a little bit more interest on that cash that will build up in your emergency fund. And then from there, we want to open up potentially a brokerage account if we have a more long-term goal, whether it's buying a house or a car down the road, retiring early, things of that nature. We'll want to open up a brokerage account and make sure that we're building that out with investments that meet that time horizon and our risk tolerance to get us to that goal, right? And then from there, we want to obviously make sure that we're contributing enough to our retirement accounts through our employer, for one, to retire at some point, and then two, for taxes, right? Making sure that, all right, now we're making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year. Our tax rate has skyrocketed, and we want to make sure that we can mitigate some of that along the way via our 401k, 403b, 457b, whatever our options are through that, right? And so the other good thing about that as well is it's going to potentially help with some of those repayment plans through student loans, right? If you're on an income-driven plan, well, putting into this particular retirement account may help with that payment, right? And so the next thing we'll want to look at is just automating the savings, right? If you're in a W-2 job and your salary is relatively consistent and you know you're getting $15,000 every 2 weeks or $10,000 every 2 weeks, whatever that ends up being after taxes and withholdings and all of that, we want to automate the next day to those buckets that we're saving for, right? And so whether that's putting that $1,000 a month toward the brokerage account or $2,000 a month toward the brokerage account or paying down our student loans early, if that's something that's important to us, whatever those things are, automate it so that it becomes a non-factor as far as having to go in there, making it a pain to go into those accounts and transfer that money. If it's automated, then you don't necessarily have to worry about it. Now, you'll want to review it every so often, every quarter, biannually, whatever the case may be that fits your need. But on a month-to-month basis, week-to-week basis, you don't necessarily have to worry about it. You know that money is getting funded to the proper accounts, right? And so we want to make sure that is automated, just like we would automate our 401k savings. And so the next thing would be understanding student loans. Like I mentioned a couple times, student loans is going to be an important part of your overall success and wealth, figuring them out and understanding what repayment plan I should be on, whether that's a standard repayment plan. Should I apply for public service loan forgiveness because I'm working at a particular hospital that where I can apply that particular forgiveness? What should I do? Should I pay it off in 2 years? Should I pay it off in 5 years? Should I string it along the whole standard repayment plan of 20 or 30 years? What does that look like? What does it look like when that loan is forgiven? Do I owe taxes on that? And so understanding the different nuances of how to get the student loans repaid, and making sure that you have at least a plan for it, right? That's one of the things that we do, right? Client comes in, they just graduated from residency. We start working on how are we going to most efficiently get this student loan paid down. The next thing is probably one of the bigger decisions that doctors make, MDs make, is deciding on whether to purchase or rent a home. And generally, I would say, look, we'll purchase because you want to build equity and so on and so forth. But as I've worked with more and more physicians in this particular spot, it is likely that they will not be at the same hospital for longer than a handful of years because they're going to move on to maybe a different city that they like better or a different part of town to a different hospital. And so generally what I would recommend is rent for 1 or 2 years, understand the part of town that you like, or get through that transition period where you know, hey, I'm going to work for this hospital for a handful of years and I'm going to move back home. Well, purchasing a home may not make sense because of all the upfront closing costs, buying the furniture, potentially having repairs on the home, things of that nature. Whereas if you rent, you know that, hey, my rent is this much a month, and it just the math may work out better, especially if it's a more short-term time frame where you're going to move on. It would make more sense to purchase the home or to rent the home, right? And then once you settle in, you're like, hey, I'm at a hospital that I think I'm going to be at for years and years and years, or the rest of my career. Then purchasing a home may make sense. Or let's say you're in the process of having a family, you got married, you're having a family, and you think that you want a starter home, but that starter home is only going to last you 2, 3, 4 years. If you're not planning on staying in that home for longer than 5 to 7 years, then potentially purchasing that home may not make sense because of all the costs involved with purchasing and interest and all of those things. So renting may be the better move, but each case is different. So I would say sit down, think about what you want to do. If you have a significant other, obviously talk with them, and then come up with a plan as far as, okay, this is what we want to do over the timeline, whether we want to stay here or we want to move. And so that will help you determine whether you want to purchase or rent, at least in the short term. And so the next thing would be as you are applying for your new attending physician position, whether that be at the hospital that you are at currently or moving to a different city, maybe back home to where you were, whatever that may be, learn how to negotiate your salary. And so obviously there are different positions or different practices where negotiating is a little bit more flexible, I guess is probably the best word to say. And then other types of practices where if you're a hospitalist or just a primary care, there are probably most doctors or a vast majority of doctors can practice general medicine, right? And so the negotiating stakes there is not very high because you may have a handful of doctors behind you that will take that same job for less money, right? Or if you have a specific specialty, orthopedics, whatever the case may be, where there is a higher level of specialty, well, now you can come in and you can negotiate because maybe you're the only one or the only handful of doctors in the area that can practice that particular specialty, right? And so understand your contract, get with an attorney to read the contract so that you understand your benefits and what's entailed within that particular job so that when you have multiple offers, you can pick the best one that fits your needs and suits your needs, right? So one of the things I want to do here in the next few weeks or months is actually get an attorney on that reviews those contracts so that he can go into more of the nuance of what he's looking for to help the physicians with their contracts and negotiating their salaries and things of that nature. So I think that would be pretty valuable to you guys. And the next thing would be to understand those benefits. So what does your health insurance look like? What does your long-term disability look like if it's offered through the employer? Do they have life insurance, group life insurance through the employer? What does your match look like with your 403B or 401k? Do they offer a 457B plan where you can contribute to both of them? Is there a Roth option for one of the retirement plans? And so all of these things you would want to review because it isn't just the salary. It is, okay, well, what are they paying for as far as the health insurance premiums? What are they offering? Are they matching an HSA contribution to me? Is the disability worth having? Do they have enough coverage? Am I going to have to go out and get my own or at least more of my own? And so on and so forth. And so understanding your benefits, maybe you take a little bit lower salary, but you get more on the benefit side or vice versa. You got to go out and find a higher salary because you know that there's more benefits that you're going to have to pay for privately, right? And so understand those employer benefits. The next thing, make sure you are properly insured. You've done all this work to pass 8-10 years of medical school, residency, undergrad. And so the last thing you would want is to become injured and now I can't practice medicine anymore. I can't do surgery because I broke my hand and I have a tremor now, right? And so getting properly insured with disability insurance, long-term disability insurance, understanding the definitions, is it own occupation? So if I can, if I can't do my particular area of practice, whether that be surgery or what have you, but I can go and teach about neurosurgery or orthopedic surgery at the local medical school, then maybe I can get some sort of benefit because I can't practice medicine, right? And so making sure that you have proper DI insurance as far as the amount of coverage, but also those definitions that cover specific types of injuries that you could potentially incur, where it would inhibit your ability to practice medicine. The next thing would be life insurance. Again, you may have a husband or wife that is depending on your income. And so, again, the last thing you would want to happen is that you do all of this work to become a physician and to have the higher earning potential. And God forbid you pass away to through an untimely death. And now your family is left with essentially nothing, right? And so, having the proper life insurance to make sure that you can cover that lifestyle however you guys see fit, but making sure that your wife, your husband, your potential kids, any debts that they would owe are taken care of, and they can live comfortably after your passing. Not an easy conversation to talk about, but one that is super important, and you just wouldn't want it to happen that way. So. The next thing would be tax efficiency. So go ahead and start setting yourself up for tax efficiency. And so, how do we do that? One, we want to make sure that we're contributing properly to our employer retirement plans. So we should be doing analysis. Do we want to do all pre-tax? Is there a Roth option? Should we be contributing to the Roth 401k, or should we be going all pre-tax? Potentially looking at two-step Roths. So that would be a way that if you're making too much money or you're over that income threshold for contributing to a Roth IRA, should we do that backdoor method where we're making that non-deductible contribution to our IRA and then just converting it over to Roth? And then any brokerage accounts that you have, making sure that you're putting yourself in a position where the portfolio is not spitting off a lot of taxable income each year to you. Obviously, early on, you start contributing to those accounts. It's not necessarily such a big deal, but as that account starts to grow and grow and grow over the years, that can become an issue. So just know how to build that portfolio where maybe it's more growth oriented and there's not a lot of dividends each year. Or if you have some fixed income, maybe look at municipal bonds, things of that nature, or potentially having your fixed income in retirement plans where now I don't necessarily need to worry about the type of income that is being spit out because it's in deferred tax type accounts, right? And then the last thing that we would want to consider and make sure that we are doing is meet with an attorney to do your estate planning, right? Again, all of this work through medical school, residency, we don't want it to go to waste. So make sure, one, that you go meet with an attorney, especially if you have a wife and kids or husband and kids, and get those docs, right? How are my kids going to be taken care of in the event that my spouse and I pass away? Where is that money going to go? Do we need a trust? What type of decisions do I want to be made if I'm incapacitated? So I want my spouse to know exactly the type of treatment that I want. And then honestly, if you're in that type of work, if you're in a profession where you're working with ICU patients and things of that nature, it's a good practice to go through because now you know the type of decisions that they've gone through and the paperwork and all that. It just gives you a little bit better understanding of that particular side of things. So hopefully this was helpful. Wanted to keep it short and sweet. So we're at about 20 minutes. The first time I'm filming this, so we'll see how this turns out. But I work with physicians and attorneys, and so I help them transition from residency to attending physician, and obviously that's a big change. It's something that you've worked very hard for, and so we want to make sure that we maximize that transition so that, one, you can retire and live the lifestyle that you want to live. Maybe you don't want to retire, but you want to have the option to slow down, whatever that case may be, and we help with that. Right. And it's been very rewarding to do so. So if you're unsure about your situation, maybe you just finished up residency or you're getting close to that and you have questions, feel free to go to my website, palmvalleyWM.com. Look at my process page, see how I work with clients, schedule a call. The first call is free, and then we can decide how we want to move forward from there. But look forward to it, and we'll start filming a little bit more of these. If you like this content, go ahead and leave a 5-star review and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Palm Valley Wealth Management. See you in the next one. This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not meant to be financial or investment advice. If you need help about your specific situation, please seek a financial, tax, legal, or insurance professional about your situation. As always, keep Palm Valley Wealth Management in mind when making those considerations.